Hi, welcome to this Corbettmaths video. In this video, we're going to look at the video solutions to the Corbettmaths practice questions on proportion and proportion questions involving time. If you need any extra help on this topic, if we go to Corbettmaths and go to the videos and worksheet section and scroll down to video number 255C, this dedicated video tutorial on proportion whenever you're dealing with time. Alternatively, you can scan the QR code. But in this video, we're going to focus on the video solutions to the practice questions, so let's get started. Okay, so let's have a look at our first question, question number 1. Question number 1 says 5 people take 40 minutes to dig a vegetable patch. And the question says, how long would it take if just one person had dug the vegetable patch? So there must be a vegetable patch a certain size, and it takes 5 people 40 minutes to dig it all. And the question asks, how long would it take if it was just one person? Okay, so if it's just one person, assuming that all the people dig at the same rate and they've all got shovels and so on, it would take that one person 5 times longer, because obviously if 5 people take 40 minutes, one person would take 5 times longer. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the 40 minutes and we're going to multiply that by 5. And if we do 40 times 5, well, 4 times 5 is 20, so 40 times 5 would be 200. So it would take one person 5 times longer and it would take them 200 minutes. And that's it. Okay, let's look at our next part, part B. Part B says, how long would it take if 8 people had dug the vegetable patch? Okay, well, if it takes one person 200 minutes, 8 people, well, it would take them 8 times less. So if we divide 200 minutes by 8, that'll then tell us how long it would take 8 people to dig this vegetable patch. So if we take the 200 and we divide that by 8, that'll tell us how long it'll take them. So how many 8s go into 2? 0 remainder 2. How many 8s go into 20? So that'll be 2, so that's 16, 2, remainder 4. And how many 8s go into 40? Well, that'll be 5. So that means that's going to be 5. So if 8 people dug the vegetable patch, it would take them 25 minutes. And that's it. So in terms of part A, it would take one person 5 times longer than 5 people. So it'll take them 200 minutes. And then if it takes one person 200 minutes, for 8 people, it would take them 8 times less amount of time. So we just divide by 8, and then that'll be 25 minutes. And that's it. And if we go on down, part C says state an assumption that you made in parts A and B. Now, I've already mentioned this, and that's the fact that all people dig at the same rate. So let's explain that. And that's it. So our assumption is that all people dig at the same rate. Now, you might have mentioned other assumptions, such as there's enough shovels for 8 people and so on, but I'm going to go for this one, that all people dig at the same rate. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 2. Okay, question number 2. Question number 2 says it takes 48 minutes to empty a swimming pool using 4 pumps. So if there's 4 pumps, it takes 48 minutes to empty the swimming pool of all the water. And part A says, how long would it take to empty the swimming pool if 3 pumps were used? Okay, so in a question like this, what I like to do is I like to consider how long it would be if it was just 1 pump, and then we can figure out how long it would take for 3 pumps. So if it takes 4 pumps 48 minutes, 1 pump would be 4 times longer than 4 pumps, obviously as long as all pumps work at the same rate, and we'll probably talk about that in part B. So I'm going to take the 48 minutes, and I'm going to multiply that by 4, because it would be 4 times longer for 1 pump rather than 4 pumps. So if we take 48 and we multiply that by 4, that's equal to 192 minutes. So it would take 192 minutes for 1 pump. But we were asked how long would it take to empty the swimming pool if 3 pumps were used. So we're now going to divide this by 3 because there's 3 pumps rather than 1 pump. So if we take the 192 and divide that by 3, that's equal to 64. So it takes 64 minutes for 3 pumps, so 64 minutes for 3 pumps. So the question says, how long would it take to empty the swimming pool if 3 pumps were used? The answer would be 64 minutes, and that's it. So just to recap, it was 48 minutes for 4 pumps, so 1 pump would be 4 times longer, so that would be 192 minutes. But then for 3 pumps, it would be 3 times less amount of time, so we just divide by 3, and that's 64 minutes, and that's it. And then in terms of part B, we've been asked what assumption we've made. Well, that's going to be that all pumps pump water at the same rate, so let's explain that. And that's it. I've just written down that all pumps pump water at the same rate. That's our assumption. We're assuming that all of these pumps will pump water at the same rate. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 3. So question number 3 says, Harold is decorating the top of cupcakes, and he does this at a constant rate. So it takes him the same amount of time to decorate each of the cupcakes. And it takes Harold 15 minutes to decorate 36 cupcakes. And the question says, how long would it take Harold to decorate 250 cupcakes? And if we go on down, we've been asked to give our answer in minutes and seconds. So we want to find out how many minutes and seconds it takes him to decorate 250 cupcakes. So what I'm going to do in this question is I'm going to find out how long it takes him to decorate 1 cupcake. Because we know it takes him 15 minutes to decorate 36 cupcakes. If we divide 15 minutes by 36, that tells how long it takes him to decorate 1 cupcake. and then we can times that by 250. Now in terms of 15 divided by 36, I'm actually going to change the 15 minutes into seconds. So I'm going to do 15 multiplied by 60, and that's equal to 900 seconds. So it takes Harold 900 seconds to decorate 36 cupcakes. So if we take the 900 and we divide that by 36, that would be how many seconds it takes him to decorate each of the cupcakes. So 900 divided by 36 is equal to 25. So it takes him 25 seconds per cupcake, so 25 seconds. Now the question says, how long would it take him to decorate 250 cupcakes? So each one takes 25 seconds, so it's going to be 250 multiplied by 25, and that's equal to 25 multiplied by 250 is 6,250 seconds. So it takes Harold 6,250 seconds to decorate 250 cupcakes. And that's it. Now the question asks us to give it in minutes and seconds. So let's convert this into minutes and seconds. So I'm going to divide 250 by 60 because it's 60 seconds in a minute. So if we divide by 60, that's equal to 104 point something. So that's going to be 104 minutes. Okay. That's equal to 104.16 recurring. So it's 104 whole minutes. Now I'm just going to do 104 times 60. And 104 times 60 is 6,240 seconds. So there's 10 seconds left over. So it would take Harold 104 minutes and 10 seconds. And that's it. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 4. So question number 4 says, Peter makes personalized pet tags. So he makes personalized pet tags. That's a bit of a tongue twister. Each tag takes the same amount of time to make, and it takes Peter 90 minutes to make 15 tags. And the question says, how long will it take Peter to make 80 tags? Okay, so in terms of this question, the approach that I would use is I would say how long it would take Peter to make one tag. So if we take the 90 minutes and divide that by 15, that'll tell us how many minutes per tag. So 90 divided by 15 is equal to 6. So it's 6 minutes per tag, 6 minutes per tag. Now he wants to decorate 80 tags. So if we do 80 multiplied by 6, 80 multiplied by 6, that's equal to 80 times 6 is equal to 480 minutes. So it takes 480 minutes, but actually you can divide that by 60, and that's equal to 8 hours. So it takes Peter 8 hours to decorate 80 tags. So let's write that down, 8 hours. Or you could write 480 minutes, and that's it. Okay, let's look at our next question. Okay, question number 5. Question number 5 says, last week a company used 8 machines for 40 hours to make a number of pencils. So it takes 8 machines 40 hours to make a certain number of pencils. And this week the company planned to use 10 machines, so they're going to use more machines to make the same number of pencils. And part A says, how long should it take 10 machines to make the pencils? Now if we go back to last week, we were told it took 8 machines 40 hours. So instead of 8 machines, if there was just one machine, it would take 8 times longer. So if we had 40 hours and we multiply that by 8, that would be how long it would take one machine to make the pencils. So we done 40 multiplied by 8, that's equal to 320 hours. So it would take 320 hours for one machine. So instead of 8 machines, if one machine was used, it would take 320 hours rather than 40 hours. Now this week they're planning to use 10 machines, so that'd be 10 times less amount of time. So if we divide the 320 by 10, because it's 10 machines rather than one machine, that'll be equal to 32. So it would take 32 hours this week. And that's it. So just to recap, for 8 machines, it would take 40 hours. So if just one machine was used, it would be 8 times longer. So that'd be 320 hours for one machine. But this week is 10 machines. So we're going to divide by 10. And that means it would take 32 hours for the machines to make the pencils. Okay, and then if we go on down to part B, so 32 hours. Part B says state an assumption that we've made. Well, that's going to be the fact that all the machines take the same amount of time, where they make pencils at the same rate. So let's explain that. Okay, let's have a look at our next question, question number 6. So question number 6 says, a printer can print at a rate of 3,000 black and white pages in an hour or 1,800 colour pages in an hour. And at 9 AM, the printer prints 7,800 black and white pages and then starts printing colour pages. And the question says, part A says, how many colour pages can be printed by 1:15 PM? Okay, so we know that at 9 AM the printer prints 7,500 black and white pages. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide that by 3,000, because every single hour it can print 3,000 black and white pages. So if we divide this by 3,000, it'll tell us how many hours it would take to print those black and white pages, those 7,500 black and white pages. So if we take our 7,500 and if we divide that by 3,000, that's equal to and it's a calculator question, which is quite nice. 7,500 divided by 3,000 is equal to 2.5, so 2.5 hours. So it takes 2.5 hours for the printer to print print those black and white pages. So if it started at 9 a.m, so if it started, I'm going to do a timeline up here. If it started at 9 a.m, over the next 2.5 hours, it would be finished the black and white pages, and that would be 11:30, so 11:30 a.m. That's when it would finish the black and white pages. And then it starts printing color pages. Now we're going to assume it just does that instantly, and it prints them at a rate of 1,800 an hour, and we're asked how many color pages can be printed by 1:15 p.m. So let's find out how much time there is between 11:30 a.m. and 1:15 p.m. So half an hour, if there was half an hour, so plus another 30 minutes, that would be equal to midday, so midday, 12 noon. And then it would be another 1 hour and 15 minutes, so another 1 hour and 15 minutes. So that means the printer would spend a grand total of 1 hour and 45 minutes printing the colour pages, because at this point it switched over from black and white to colour. So altogether it would spend 1 hour, 45 minutes printing colour pages. And they print them at a rate of 1,800 an hour. So we need to work out how many colour pages would be printed in 1 hour, 45 minutes, or 1 3/4 hours. So that's quite straightforward actually, because it's 1 3/4 hours. You can do in your calculator 1 3/4, or even 1.75, that's 1 3/4 hours, multiplied by 1,800. And if we do that, it'll tell us how many colour pages will be printed. So 1,800 multiplied by 1.75 is equal to 3,150. So that's how many colour pages can be printed, colour pages. And that's it. Now, another way to do that would be to say, well, in 1 hour, it would be 1,800. In 3/4 of an hour, we could work out 3/4 of 1,800, and 3/4 of 1,800 is equal to 1,350. And if you add the 1,800 and the 1,350, that's also equal to 3,150 colour pages. And that's it. So how many colour pages can be printed by 1:15 p.m? The answer is 3,150. And that's it. And then part B says state an assumption that we've made. So there's a few assumptions that we could have made. One is the fact that it just changes over from black and white to colour pages instantly. Another one is that the printer doesn't need to have the paper replaced. I know whenever I'm at home and I'm printing, I know that I have to stop printing and replace the paper regularly, but obviously perhaps this might be in a factory where you can put a lot of paper in ready for that printer to print them. But let's explain that. So now the question asks us for an assumption. I've written down two here just because you may have written down either one of them. I've said that one, that no time was wasted by loading paper, or the printer switched jobs instantly, just went from the black and white to the colour jobs instantly. Okay, let's have a look at our next question. Okay, let's have a look at our next question, question number 7. So question number 7 says a printer takes 5 seconds to print a leaflet, and a company want to print 18,000 leaflets within 3 hours, and they plan to use 8 printers. And the question says, will they be able to print all 18,000 leaflets within 3 hours? Explain your answer. Okay, so we want to find out, will they be able to print all 18,000 leaflets in 3 hours? So what I'm going to do to begin with is see how many leaflets one printer can print in 3 hours. So they can print a leaflet every 5 seconds. So if we divide 60, how many seconds are a minute, by 5, that's equal to 12. So that's 12 leaflets in 1 minute. So that's 12 leaflets in a minute by one printer. So in 1 minute, a printer can print 12 leaflets. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to see how many leaflets can be printed in an hour. So obviously there's 60 minutes in an hour. So if we take the 12 leaflets and multiply that by 60, that's equal to 720. So 720 leaflets. So that means a printer can print 720 leaflets in an hour. And let's multiply that by 3 to see how many leaflets the printer can print in 3 hours. So 720 multiplied by 3 is equal to... So that means that a printer can print 2,160 leaflets in 3 hours. Now we want to see how many leaflets can be printed by 8 printers. So we're now going to times that by 8. So let's take the 2,160 and multiply that by 8 and see what we get. So when we times by 8, that's equal to 17,280. So that's how many leaflets can be printed in 3 hours. So that's how many leaflets can be printed in 3 hours by all 8 printers. Now the question said, will they be able to print 18,000 leaflets within 3 hours? The answer would be no, they can only print 17,280. So let's explain that. And that's it. I've just explained that no, they can print 17,280 leaflets and not 18,000. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 8. So question number 8 says, at a wedding, 12 waiters can serve food to all the guests within 16 minutes. So it would take 16 minutes to deliver all the food to the guests at this wedding if 12 waiters are working. And the question says, how many waiters would be needed to serve the food to the guests in less than 10 minutes? So they want to serve the food to the guests in less than 10 minutes, and they want to know how many waiters that would take. Okay, so it would take 12 waiters, 16 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find out how long it would take one waiter. So if there wasn't 12 and there was just one waiter, how long would that take? So I'm going to take the 16 minutes and I'm going to times that by 12 because it would take 12 times longer. And 16 multiplied by 12 is equal to 192 minutes. So it would take one waiter. So one waiter would take 192 minutes. So it would take one waiter 192 minutes. That's a long time they'd have to wait for their food if one waiter was serving all these guests. So we now know how long it would take one waiter. And for instance, if we took that 192 minutes and we divided that by, for instance, 12 waiters, we know that would be equal to 16 minutes. So for instance, there was 12 waiters and we divided by 12, it would take 16 minutes because obviously there's 12 times as many waiters. But there would be a particular number, the number of waiters that we could divide it by, that would give us an answer of 10 minutes. And obviously if 192 divided by this number is equal to 10, we can take the 192 and divide that by 10, and that would be equal to 19.2. So if there was exactly 19.2 waiters, which obviously isn't possible, but if there was 19.2 waiters, it would take 10 minutes to deliver the food to the guests. Now we want to find out how many waiters would be needed to serve the guests in less than 10 minutes. So we're going to either need to choose 19 or 20 waiters here. Now if there was only 19 waiters, it would go up. They would actually take longer than 10 minutes to deliver the food. So if we chose 20 waiters would mean that it would take less than 10 minutes. So the answer would be 20 waiters. 20 waiters would be needed to serve all the guests in less than 10 minutes. And let's see how long it would actually take if we took the 192 minutes, how long it takes one waiter, and divide that by 20, because obviously this may be 20 times faster. If we do 192 divided by 20, that's equal to 9.6 minutes. So it would take 9.6 minutes to serve all the guests. And that's it. Okay, let's have a look at our next question, question number 9. Okay, so question number 9. Question number 9 says, it takes 15 hours for 20 workers to seed 40 acres. So there must be 40 acres of land, and these 20 workers are seeding it, so throwing out seed, and it takes 15 hours for them to seed that land. And the question says, how long would it take for 10 workers to seed 90 acres? So obviously the number of workers has changed, and the area has changed, so it will obviously take a different amount of time perhaps. So we need to see how long it's going to take 10 workers to seed 90 acres. Okay, so it takes 15 hours, 20 workers to seed 40 acres. So just written that information down, okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it from 20 workers to 1 worker. So I'm going to find out how many hours it would take for 1 worker to seed 40 acres. So let's see how long it would take 1 worker. So obviously instead of being 20 workers, there's 1 worker, so it's going to take 20 times longer. So we're going to take the 15 hours and we're going to times that by 20. And 15 times 20 is 300. So it would take 300 hours for 1 worker to seed 40 acres. Okay, so it would take 300 hours for 1 worker to seed the 40 acres. Now what I'm going to do is, rather than seeding 40 acres, we're going to see how long it would take 1 worker to seed 1 acre. So instead of being 40 acres, we're going to have an area which is 40 times smaller. So obviously instead of doing 40 acres, if it was 1 acre, it'd be 40 times less the amount of time it would take. So we're going to take the 300 and we're going to divide that by 40. And 300 divided by 40 is equal to 7.5. So it would take 7.5 hours for 1 worker to seed 1 acre. Okay, so we now know it takes 7.5 hours for 1 worker to seed 1 acre. But we want to seed 90 acres rather than 1 acre. So it's going to take 90 times longer to do 90 acres. So let's write that down. Okay, so it's going to take 90 times longer. So we're going to take the 7.5 and we're going to times that by 90 to see how long that would take for that 1 worker to seed 90 acres. So 7.5 multiplied by 90 is equal to 675 hours. So if there was just 1 worker doing this work, to seed all 90 acres, it would take 675 hours. But good news, there's reinforcements have arrived. It's not going to be just 1 worker. There's going to be 10 workers. So it's going to be 10 times less amount of time. So we can divide this by 10. So if we take the 675 and we divide by 10, that's equal to 67.5. So it's going to take 67.5 hours. So let's write that down. And that's it. It would take 67.5 hours for 10 workers to seed 90 acres. And that's it. So the answer is 67.5 hours. So let's write that down. 67.5 hours. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 10. Okay, question number 10, it says 7 workers take 4.5 hours to make 280 Christmas cards. And the question says, how long will it take 10 workers to make 3,000 Christmas cards? And we're to assume that each worker makes Christmas cards at the same rate. Okay, so I've written down what we've been told. It would take 4.5 hours for 7 workers to make 280 Christmas cards. Now we want to work out how long it would take for 10 workers to make 3,000 Christmas cards. So I'm going to find out how long it would take for one worker to begin with. And then what we'll do is we'll then see how long it would take for 10 workers. Okay, so in terms of these Christmas cards, these 280, if there was just one worker making these 280 Christmas cards, it would take 7 times longer, because obviously rather than it being 7 people, if there's just one person, it's going to take them 7 times longer. So let's take the 4.5 and let's times that by 7. And 4.5 multiplied by 7 is equal to 31.5 hours. So it would take 31.5 hours for one worker to make those 280 Christmas cards. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide that by 280. So rather than making 280 Christmas cards, we're going to see how long it takes for one worker to make one Christmas card. So let's work that out. So 31.5 divided by 280 is equal to 0.1125 hours. So it would take 0.1125 hours for one worker to make one card. Now let's see how long it would take for one worker to make all 3,000. So if they were doing it all by themselves, how long it would take them. So it would take them, obviously, if they're making one card, it takes 0.1125 hours. If we times that by 3,000, that tells how long it would take the one worker to make 3,000 cards. So let's do that. So 0.1125 multiplied by 3,000 is equal to, when we times that by 3,000, we get an answer of 337.5 hours for one worker to make 3,000 cards. Now the good news is they're not doing it by themselves. They've got obviously people helping them. And so if there's 10 workers, it's going to take 10 times less amount of time. So we can just divide this by 10. So that would be 33.75 hours. So 33.75 hours for 10 workers to make 3,000 cards. And that's it. So let's write that down. The answer would be, it would take 33 3/4 or 0.75 hours. And that's it. Okay, let's have a look at our next question, question number 11. So question number 11 says, a team of 5 builders can build a house in 24 days if they work 10 hours a day. And part A says, how many days will it take a team of 4 builders if they work 6-hour days? So they're not working 10-hour days, they're working 6-hour days. And there's not 5 of them, there's 4 of them. So it's probably going to take them a few more days to build this. So let's work it out. Okay, so we've just written down what we've been told. It takes 5 builders 24 days at 10-hour days. Now I'm actually going to work out then how many hours that would be. So if it's 24 days with 10 hours a day, that would be 240 hours. So 5 builders take 240 hours. So that's how long it would take the 5 builders in hours. Now I'm going to times that by 5 and see how long it would take one builder. So if there's just one builder, it would take 5 times longer. So if we do the 240 multiplied by 5, that's equal to 1,200. So it would take 1,200 hours if there was just one builder rather than 5 builders. Now, the good news is there's actually 4 builders, so it's going to take them 4 times less amount of time. So we're going to divide that by 4. So 4 builders take, and then if we take the 1,200 and divide that by 4, that's equal to 300 hours. So it would take 4 builders 300 hours to build the house. Okay, so that's how many hours it would take them. So we know if there's 4 builders, it would take 300 hours to build this house. However, we've not been asked to give the answer in hours. We've been asked to give it in days, or working days, because we're told that they're working 6 hours a day. So let's divide the 300 hours by 6, because every time there's 6 hours, that's a working day. So 300 divided by 6 will be equal to 50. So it would take 50 days. It would take 50 working days for them to complete this house. So the answer is 50. So let's write that down, 50. 50 days. And then part B says state an assumption that we've made in part A. Well, that's that all of the builders work at an equal rate. So let's write that down. And that's it. Okay, let's have a look at our last question, question number 12. Okay, so question number 12. Question number 12 says a leisure centre normally fills their swimming pool with 8 hoses that each work at the same rate. And to fill an empty swimming pool, it takes all 8 hoses a total of 12 hours. So it takes 12 hours if they're using all 8 hoses. Now last week, the leisure centre had an issue with some of the hoses. They started filling the empty swimming pool with just 2 hoses. And then after 4 hours, they started using an additional hose. So that would be them 3 hoses. And then after 7 hours, they managed to get all 8 hoses working. And the question says, how long did it take to fill the swimming pool? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this information here, that 8 hoses take a total of 12 hours. So that means that if, for instance, there was 8 hoses, it takes 12 hours. If there was just one hose, it would take 12 times longer. So if we do 12 multiplied by 8, that's equal to 96 hours. So if there was just one hose, it would take 96 hours. So that means that there's 96 hours of hose hours needed to fill the pool. So for instance, if there was 8 hoses and they're all working at the same time, over 12 hours, that'll be 96 hours in total worth of pumping. Each hose is delivering 12 hours worth of water. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by looking at the fact that whenever they started filling this empty pool, they were using 2 hoses, and they used those 2 hoses alone for 4 hours. So if we do 4 multiplied by 2, that's equal to 8 hours. So that's 8 hours worth of water being pumped into the pool. There's 4 hours from each of the 2 hoses. So that's 8 hours worth of water being pumped into the pool. And altogether, we need 96 hours worth of water being pumped into the pool. Okay, so that's 8 hours worth of water being pumped into the pool, 2 hours from each of the hoses. Now, if we have a look here, after the 4 hours, we're then told they started using an additional hose. So that'll be 3 hoses, so 3 hoses. And that was from 4 hours to 7 hours. That's another 3 hours. That's 3 hours. So that's 3 hours of 3 hoses. So altogether, that's 9 hours worth of water being pumped into the pool there, because that's 3 hours of 3 hoses. So that's 9 hours. So altogether, that's 17 hours worth of water being pumped into the pool. You had the first 2 hoses delivering 4 hours worth of water each. You've then got 3 hoses delivering 3 hours worth of water. So that's another 9 hours worth of water. That's 17 hours worth of water. Okay. And then we're told that after 7 hours, so after these 7 hours, they managed to get all 8 hoses working. So let's add these together. So 8 plus 9 is equal to 17 hours worth of water being pumped into the pool. Now we know that they need 96 hours worth of water being pumped into the pool. So if we do 96 take away the 17, that's equal to 96 take away 17 is equal to 79 hours. So for instance, at this point, after these 7 hours, if they just resorted back to using one more hose, it would take 79 hours to fill up the pool at that stage, okay? But there's not just one hose, there's 8 hoses. So we're going to divide these 79 hours worth of water that needs to be pumped into the pool by 8. So we're going to do 79 divided by 8. And 79 divided by 8 is equal to 9.875. So it would take 9.875 hours. So whenever they start using all 8 hoses, it takes an additional 9.875 hours to fill up the pool. Now, there's already been 7 hours worth of water being pumped into the pool. So if we do 7 plus 9.875, this will be the total amount of time that it takes them to fill this pool. So 9.875 plus 7 will be equal to 16.875. And that's it. And that's it. That's our answer. It would take a grand total of 16.875 hours. Or if we wanted it in hours and minutes, it'd be 16 hours. And then we could just take the 0.875 and times that by 60. And that's equal to 52.5 minutes. Or you could even write it as 16 hours, 52 minutes and 30 seconds. So that's how long it would take to fill up the pool. And that's it. And that's it. So these have been the video solutions to the Corbettmaths Practice Questions on proportion and dealing with proportion questions involving time. If you need any extra help on this topic, you can go to video number 255C on Corbettmaths, and there's a dedicated video tutorial there on proportion and time. Alternatively, you can scan this QR code. But I really hope you found this video useful. If you have found it useful, please like it, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and please share Corbettmaths and all the resources with any friends or teachers and so on that might find it useful. So thank you so much. Cheers. Bye.